Hello and welcome to this week's live. So today we're talking about a very popular topic, which is cravings. And I know that this is something women tend to particularly experience in the week before their period. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about why that happens, the causes, going into some quick fixes for this, and then going into some treatments as well for kind of long-term making these cravings not as intense in the first place. So first of all, let's talk about the menstrual cycle. So in this phase, just before we come on our period, about a week before, progesterone slowly creeps up and then it drops back down again. And progesterone does this, or this hormone appears, because we're just after ovulation, and it's a hormone that kind of helps to prepare the body for pregnancy, just in case we got pregnant during ovulation. So what that means is that it slows down our metabolism so that more nutrients can be absorbed out of our food. And it also increases our appetite, so we're eating even more food just in case we've got another mouth to feed. So that might explain biologically why just randomly in this phase, hi to whoever's watching by the way, you just suddenly feel like these intense cravings and you might get a lot more hangry. So moving on to the hangry side of things, progesterone has a knock-on effect on insulin. So insulin basically controls our blood sugar levels, which means in this phase of our cycle, we basically get a lot more hangry and might just feel hungry all the time if we're not nourishing ourselves regularly and with the right nutrients. So even eating a lot of sugar in this time is really, really common. That tends to be the most common craving, and that's because of the fluctuating insulin levels. And another cause of cravings during this time is, of course, as you may be aware, premenstrual phase, we can often feel a lot more emotional. So this has a knock-on effect on emotional eating. And again, it tends to be sugar or sugary foods that really release this feel-good chemicals and hormones in the brain, actually, but they're a whole other set of hormones that cheer us up a bit. And what some people don't always realize is that there's sugar, of course, in carbs. So things like your grains, pasta, bread, potatoes, and carbs are basically made up of lots of little molecules of sugar. But also in alcohol, particularly wine, is kind of like liquid sugar in a lot of ways with a bit of alcohol mixed in. And also cheese. So anything that ends in O's, like sucrose or fructose, but also lactose, which you may know is in dairy. So if you find you're craving those kinds of foods in this time, you're not alone. It makes sense with where your menstrual cycle is and what's happening inside of your body. And just going off the emotional eating thing as well, you might find, talking about cravings more generally, that addictions come up a lot more in this time. So things like alcohol, smoking, cannabis, shopping, social media, all things that we really rely on for emotional support sometimes can again come up in this phase, and that's because of the emotional upheaval that it can feel like is happening at this time in our cycle. And finally, a cause of why sugar cravings might be really, really intensified at this phase in our cycle is to do with our gut bacteria. So if you find that you get sugar cravings throughout your cycle generally anyway, but then in this phase they get really overwhelming and really intense, then you could possibly have an overgrowth of candida, which is a certain type of bacteria that we often associate with having thrush, but it doesn't always present in that way. It can present in other parts of the body. So that might be something just to consider if you are finding that these cravings are intense throughout your cycle. So moving on to some quick fixes. In the moment, we're in the premenstrual phase. We're just dying for food 24/7. What do we do? So first of all, increase your healthy fats as much as you feel is possible. It's kind of hard to overdo this. So things like avocado oil and olive oil on salads, getting your nuts in there, avocados themselves. Healthy protein sources would be things like beans, lentils. If you're into like organic grass-fed meat, that's a really great option as well to get some high quality protein. But don't discard your veggies. Like broccoli is 30% protein, so have a look into high protein foods that suit your diet and your beliefs, and there will definitely be things that you can access. Another good one, if you're really struggling on the sweet tooth front, which I definitely do, is to eat savory in the morning. So instead of having a sweet breakfast, which kind of gets you thinking about sweet foods for the rest of your day, if you can start with a more savory breakfast, like you could do savory pancakes or like salmon, spinach, whatever your go-to thing is, eggs, then that is always a great kind of way to start your day, and then try and put off the sweeter foods to as late in the day as possible so you're not constantly thinking about them. Other people might work differently and want to just have a little bit in the morning to satiate it. I don't know, work that out for yourself really. But I found that, not having something sweet in the morning is really beneficial for a lot of people. Eating regularly as well. So I'm talking every like 2 to 3 hours. And normally, especially as a yogini, I'd be saying to give your digestive system a rest between meals. It's really important. So I'd normally say the rest of your cycle, try not to snack between meals. But in this phase of your cycle, go wild on the snacking. Still try and make it regular. So you're having like breakfast, morning snack, lunch, afternoon snack, dinner, and then maybe a little evening snack if you feel like you need it as well. And there's no shame in that if that's going to help to keep your hormones in balance and keep you feeling better and ultimately reaching for healthier foods. Because if you let yourself get really hungry and really hangry, you're going to reach for sugar and things like that. So just eat when you need to, basically. And have healthy snacks stored in all kinds of places and on hand. And you really want to be planning for this phase in a spring and in a summer. So just after you come off your period or while you're ovulating, start like I make these like bulk sweet potato brownies and keep them in the freezer. Or I make like chocolate nut butter and have it in the cupboard. I make like kale chips and all kinds of things that I can just like go to straight away. And I appreciate not everyone has the time to do all of this cooking. But there's lots of things you can buy as well. And ultimately, it might be about reprioritizing spending and allocating it into areas dedicated to nutrition. But that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day. So, yes, what have we got else? And coming on to the emotional side of things. So what I found really interesting a few years ago is realizing that a lot of my food cravings were actually me craving something else. So often it was actually just water. So it can be great to, if you're like really craving something, have a big glass of water, wait half an hour and see how you feel. Because often that can actually be what your body needs, but it can be a little bit more subtle than that. So it might just be that you really just need a break from whatever you're doing. If you're at work, you need a bit of alone time. Maybe you need to move your body around. Maybe you need a bit of socialization. Maybe you need a bit of love, a hug, different things that kind of nurture the body in a different way. And we often immediately think it's food that we want, but sometimes it's something else. So it can be really helpful to journal around that or just keep track of what's going on. Now moving into more long term. So first of all, I would say the most important thing is to balance out your hormones through nutrition and lifestyle changes. And I appreciate that's easier said than done. So this is something that I really coach my clients through. But there's loads of resources online and in previous videos I've done about this. And you really want to be focusing on lowering cortisol or stress levels and dealing with insulin as well. So that would mean lowering sugar intake, which I appreciate is not easy to do. So, coming to the candida side of things, which I mentioned earlier, is maybe doing a full candida detox. And this basically means cutting out as much sugary food as possible, even like sweet fruit and carbs and stuff, for about 3 months, taking herbal supplements. It's a whole thing that I went through, and honestly, it's probably one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. But it was so worth it. And I've got so many tips and recipes and ways of kind of getting around the sweet tooth stuff. This is talking from a person who used to like come home from school and sit and melt half a massive bar of chocolate and eat it with a spoon. So I'm with you on the sweet tooth front. I know how hard it is. But yeah, definitely reach out to me if you'd like some advice on the Candida detox. And also getting to the root of emotional cravings. So I kind of touched on this before, but actually actively journaling around every time you get a craving and thinking like, is there an emotional connection here? Is there something else I want? And you might find that if you deal with these kind of root causes of the cravings, that the cravings just don't come up as much in the first place. Okay, so that is it from me for today. And next week, I'm going to be answering some really specific questions, well, from next week onwards, actually, that come up all the time with my clients. But I would also love to hear if you've got any specific questions that you'd like me to answer, preferably more so focused on the menstrual cycle, fertility, any kind of problems you're having with your woman's health, but also if it's things like tips around how to stay nutritious in like various difficult situations. I don't think nutritious, oh no, that is a word. Anyway, yeah, send through any questions you might have and I can decide, if it's something that we'll talk about now or later, or maybe I'll address it in a post instead of a live. But definitely shoot through anything that you have. You can either drop those in the comments, send me a message, or you can even post in the group if you'd like a bit of group feedback on one of your questions as well. So if you don't just want an answer from me. So I think that can definitely be really, really helpful. Okay, that is it for now. I hope you enjoyed the live. Let me know in the comments how you felt about that. If you had any like aha moments or found it really helpful, if there's things you wish I could include a bit more, I'd really appreciate that feedback. Okay, have a wonderful day. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next week at the new time actually of 12:30 British summer time. So we're just shifting half an hour later. Alrighty, bye for now.